Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Jongwoo, the PhD student at MIT, and thank you for coming and listening to my talk. As the title indicates, I'm going to talk about the method we have recently developed to study human postural dynamics and control in unperturbed balance experiments. So, where is it moving? Right. So we all know that we humans are have amazing ability to maintain our body upright. And this video is just one particular example of many, many remarkable examples that show how incredible capability we have. Standing upright in our daily activity might look tedious and very easy compared to this walking on a sled in a valley, but it's actually quite an interesting and challenging task because our many degrees of freedom body is inherently unstable. So we have to apply corrective torques to stabilize our inherently unstable body. And that postural control, how do we do that, has been a very interesting question to all of us. We all want to understand how humans do balance our body. Now, who are we? We would include neuroscientists, physiologists, physical therapists, engineers, and roboticists. And they have approaching this question in all different perspectives. So I think I have to clarify that I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm interested in enhancing our understanding of math models of joint space dynamics and control. So there are two experimental paradigms in balance studies, perturbed and unperturbed. In perturbed balance, you apply external perturbation to the human subjects, and you examine how they react upon the external perturbation. A typical way of applying perturbation is to translate or rotate the platform the subjects are standing on, and then record the motion of the subjects in response or in react to those applied transformation or translation or rotation of the platform. So you have a direct measurement of the movement of the platform and the motion of the human body. With these two signals, you can apply the well-established input-output system identification techniques developed in engineering society. From here, you can identify input-output dynamic relation, and actually you can tease out the postural control or the control strategy that humans are using. This approach has been well established and very popular since last few decades ago. There are a lot of interesting studies out there, and you can actually learn a lot from them. On the other hand, unperturbed balance, as the name says, you don't apply perturbation. So if you don't apply perturbation, would subjects move at all? Yes, they would, because they are kept challenged by the internal noise in our system. So you can still measure the output motion of the human subjects, and you can characterize human behaviors. But the problem here is that the driving signals or driving forces here are internal noise, so you cannot have a direct access to the measurement of them. This actually hinders you from applying the input-output system identification method that has been well used in the perturbed balance cases. So perturbed balance is a perfect setup to apply system ID, and we can learn a lot from that. So why do we bother? And actually, humans are notoriously adaptive to external perturbation. For example, as reported, the identified dynamics and control of a human subject is depending on the type and the size of the perturbation that you have applied. Moreover, if you want to apply the external perturbation in a systematic way, you actually usually need and sometimes bulky, lab-mounted robotic systems in your lab, which is a little bit, how to say, demanding. So on the other hand, unperturbed balance allows you to study the natural and daily balance activity. And sometimes it is also useful when external perturbations are not applicable. And for example, if you want to study a human balancing on a challenging environment, like the balance on a slack line you have seen just before, or when you want to study patients or subjects that have impaired balance, it is kind of dangerous to apply external perturbation. So if it exists, a systematic system ID method for unperturbed balance is desirable. And we propose a presentation. Okay, so our goal is to identify the joint level human postural dynamics and control. And without any external perturbation, without any direct measurement of the internal biological noise. This can be mathematically formulated. So I promise I will not exhaust you with math, but please bear with me a little bit. So our human postural control system can be mathematically described as on the left panel. So the human body can be described with the states, the joint states X, and the input joint torque U. And we model the controller, the postural feedback controller, as with the controller gain matrix K with sensory measurements Y. And these sensory measurements and the execution of the joint torques are corrupted by the internal noise. Together, we can actually summarize this all together as a closed loop dynamics of the system of human body. Now our objective is to estimate the closed loop dynamics ACL, and then estimate controller gain K to understand what control strategy the human subjects are using. And here we're going to only use the measured time series of the Z. I think I forgot to mention what Z is, but the Z is the measurement of human body, which is a function of the joint states. We also are equipped with a known A and B matrices because we can get them from gravitary inertial mechanics, but we don't know what all the noise sources are. We actually found that it is possible to solve with the autocorrelation of the output signals with non-zero time like K, without I'm skipping all the details of the math, but you can actually estimate your ACL, the closed loop dynamics, and the controller gain K in a very reasonable and reliable way. All right, so to validate our method, we modeled a balancing human as a double inverted pendulum, which is, I guess, the simplest possible model that we can use right now. And we stabilized the model with the linear quadratic regulator just for simplicity and just for make an example. And we tested two different controllers that was studied before in our lab. The case 1 beam balancing, case 2 quiet standing. Okay, so I know I'm very bad at aesthetics, so please do not blame me for the choice of colors. But here I show you example simulation results of single trial of two different cases. So each model performed 90 seconds of standing, which is reasonable for like human balancing studies. And so each model performed the 5 trials of that. And from all 5 trials, we can actually use the method presented before to estimate the A and K matrices. We iterated this 10 times to calculate the mean estimation error. And also because we are in the simulation world, we know the exact A and K matrices, so we can actually compute the estimation error as shown below. We tested multiple different combination of biological noises, noise and measurement noise. And here you are seeing the mean estimation error of dynamics A on the left and the control K on the right. Note the color code indicates a very small error in all combination of noise strength. And the advantage of this method is highlighted when you actually compare it with typical least squares method. So you can find very large errors in the certain conditions, as on the top right corner, reaching up to 150%. The difference between two methods is more evident in the second case. And again, the proposed method on top row gives us very small error. while the bottom row shows you like, especially the controller gain error reaches up to 400%. So in summary, we have developed a system ID method for unperturbed balance, and which would not require you to externally perturb human subjects. We validated this method in simulation, and it's applicable to real experimental data is ongoing. Of course, there are limitations. We assume linear and time invariant dynamics and white uncorrelated noise, and each assumption may need validation. Interpreting the result requires care. We only identify apparent joint level dynamics and control. This actually means that the contribution of intrinsic impedance, neurocontrol, active neurocontrol, feedback, feedforward, predictive, whatever, are all blended in our result. And moreover, the time delay is not explicitly incorporated. Nevertheless, I believe the method allows us to better understand human balance in an unperturbed case, which has not been like tackled before. This has a practical implication because clinicians may use our method to assess individual balance quantitatively and accurately, and engineers may use this method to improve their technology. The mathematics behind this method is quite general, and actually it could be relevant to many different fields, such as motor learning model or assessing stability of rhythmic movements, such as walking. For details, I suggest you to check our paper, which is under review. And with that, I will stop here and thank you for listening, and I'll welcome any questions or feedback or comments.
Okay, thank you. That's a pretty interesting approach, Jongwoo. We have time for one very quick question. So I'm just going to ask, have you tried estimating the dynamics in one participant and applying it to another? How well does it generalize?
It's a good question. Are you asking if I applied this method to one subject and applied it to the other subject?
Yeah.
I think the point of this method is you can use this method to identify the dynamics and control of individual subjects. So like all of the subjects may have different controller gains, and we do have different body parts. We may have very similar skeletal mechanical dynamics, but the controller gains could be quite fairly different. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. So this method provides you to like identify individual subjects rather than the group results. And
but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be, you know, active inference online, right? You could estimate the underlying model one day and then apply it the next to sort of initial. Yeah. Okay, great. Yes. Okay, that's really cool. Okay, we are out of time. Thanks a lot, Jongwoo. I'll let.